There's not confusion about the online system?
No.
Good?
It's pretty
Straihtforward? Pretty obvious?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I want to flip to page 126 and talk about the order of the tasks, okay? Now I'm going to read this. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. But this is just going to be like our introduction, our overview, okay? Page 126. So the first, and then what we're going to do is we're going to dive into what each of these things mean, okay? We already talked about some of them, right? So the first one is you find or create your initiative or contract. Okay, so I met with Mariano's. I create in the partnership 2 screenings a month for the next year at $100 a screening. Okay, make sense? And then I collect my backup documentation. So one of those is going to be the confirmation that I entered that big email, or that I entered that big request for money approval into the online system. You don't have to worry about writing this down because we're going to go into what backup documentation is. And then the other piece is going to be like a letter of agreement or a contract that we created. You're going to learn how to create a contract. We have like 17 different templates for you, which is really nice. And then the other one is going to be a W-2 if it's on file. If not, then a copy of a W-2 that has been filled out. Okay? And then on that backup documentation, I'm going to highlight all the pertinent information to make it really easy. And then I'm going to create the initiative of the title. Or excuse me, the title of the initiative. I'm afternoon brain. The title of the initiative. It's so important that it's its own thing. You guys get that? And then I'm going to enter the initiative into the online system for initial approval. That was that first one. Now I'm asking for money, right? Then I'm going to check the W-9 database on Yammer to see if one's on file. Don't worry about that. I know that sounds crazy. Holly's going to teach you all about that. You don't even need to know what a W-9 is, okay? I don't, to be honest with you, okay? And if there's not one on file, then you complete one, okay? Then, once I have all 3 pieces of those backup documentations, I email them to events@chiro1.net in a very specific way. Okay? Make sense? Then I'm going to check the online entry system for approval for that contract to see if it was approved. Okay? And if it wasn't, then I go back and fix whatever I need to fix, talk to my regional manager. If it was, wonderful! Then I re-enter all the events if I need to. Do I need to do that for every single time? No, it depends on what it is. Right? If it's a one-time, don't need to worry about it. Okay? Then I enter all those re-enter those single dates as unpaid events for the CERs to attach their patients to. Okay? What we're looking for are patterns. You know, is it better to run the grocery stores on Wednesdays than Fridays? You guys get that? Because we can look at those kinds of trends from days to weeks to years, all that kind of stuff. Then I'm going to confirm the initiative. So you guys are learning all about types of confirmations, right? Confirming is a big thing. It's on you to confirm your event. Hey, just a reminder, we're coming in next Tuesday to run this event. Okay? You'll learn that later in the week. So you confirm the initiative. Then you're going to double check because you're going to see your initiative pop up on the regional manager's schedule, right? Because you're going to get copied on every single schedule. Double check that all the information is right. The address, the contact information, because that's what gets sent out to the CERs. Is everything right? Are the times right? Is the address right? Is everything correct? Your regional managers, they are human, and sometimes they mess up, especially when they're managing all these events. So double check because this is your money. Okay. Then you're going to do your final confirmation with your partner, event manager, or store owner, whatever it is. Okay. Final confirmation, and then you're attending the event when possible. Make sure that you are controlling everything as much as possible, and then you're going to track your results, evaluate the results, and put that into your own personal tracker. Okay. Does that make sense? Is that a clear picture for you of what the whole process looks like from start to finish? Yeah? Cool. All right.
And you're gonna give us like printouts of this with, and highlights and all that other beautiful stuff? And, wow.
Printouts. That's yours.
And so then what are you highlighting? The backup documentation?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
got it.
yes.
Yeah.
We're
That's what I was like, what is it called?
Talking about a checklist.
Yeah.
I was like,
You're like, oh.
it's right there.
Okay. What's it called?
Yeah, we're going to talk about backup documentation. We've actually got some examples. But before we go to backup documentation, actually we're going to go to backup documentation first, and then we're going to talk about the naming protocol. Okay, does that sound good? Because backup, you want to start collecting the backup documentation, and through the backup documentation, you create a title. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of? No. Okay. I'm just like, sure, I have to go along with whatever you're saying. You guys are fun. All right.
This is more than CER, isn't it? It sure is. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So page 137. It's really not that bad. Remember, you're learning the hardest part on day 1. So don't feel bad. Really the hardest stuff for me. What's up with that? Right? Okay. Page 137. So I'm going to read this word for word, kind of word for word, just to make sure that we don't skip anything, okay? So you're often going to need to correspond with the marketing analysis department regarding your initiatives. It's imperative that you follow the correct structure. So nobody owns events at Chiro1.net. How many of you guys are familiar with Outlook? Okay. There's rules to Outlook. You guys get that, right? You can create rules. Okay. So when you have Outlook, you can create rules. So if an event title says this, it'll go to this folder. If an email title says subject, email subject, I'm going to get it right. So if the email subject has question in the subject, it's going to go to this folder. If the email subject has documentation in this subject, it goes to this folder, okay? So there's rules, there's a lot of strict rules. That's why everything has to go a certain way. Otherwise, your email will get lost and your event will never get approved because we never got the backup documentation. Does that make sense? Then those folders, the ones that say question, the one that says documentation, the one that says check inquiry, all get filtered to more people, okay? Because certain people do certain things. So it's very imperative that you follow this process for emailing events at Chiro1.net for your backup documentation, okay? Everybody with me so far? Okay. So it's imperative that you follow the correct structure in terms of your email in order to receive a timely response and or approval. Below are some of the reasons that you may need to contact. So the first one, the reasons that you would never want to specifically contact someone in the marketing analysis department, okay? You would never, Crystal Brake is someone that she like runs that whole department. You don't want to email her specifically what your backup documentation is. Why?
Is that the girl in your office?
Yeah, she's right outside my office. Have you seen her desk? She
Yes.
has a whole cutouts, okay? She's got a humongous job. She will not email you back, okay? It's just, and if he does, it's going to be a very short email. So
Why are you bothering?
exactly. So you need to make sure that
What
you
is
follow
the
this.
job?
She's the marketing analysis manager. So all of the approvals go through her. All the checks go through her. Everything entered in the online system goes through her. All of the trends go through her. Like she's got the job of like 5 people. Okay? So it's really important that you follow this protocol. You will be asked to correct it once. The second time, you will be corrected. Does that make sense? With an acknowledgement. All right? Because the errors from not following this cause too many waves in finance and marketing analysis. Okay, so does that make sense? So, what's your question?
I'm not that familiar with Outlook. I don't know how to set up the rules.
No,
I can
you're
do
not
something.
setting. You're not setting any rules. So the events at Chiro1.net has rules in it. Okay, so that email's over here waiting to receive emails. What's on you is to make sure that you follow the correct structure that we teach you here, saying that you have to have this word in the subject. It has this title in the subject. Does that make sense? Otherwise, if not, it's going to go up here instead of to the correct folder. Okay? Or if you email Crystal directly, it's not gonna happen. Does that make sense? And then your event won't get run, finance has to come and on your behalf, like, fix everything for you. It's just not a good situation, okay? Any questions about that so far? You guys all get that concept? Okay. So, reasons that you may need to contact events at Chiron.net, submitting backup documentation. That's the main reason why. Asking a question about how to submit documentation. If something's a little weird, you might want to email them first, like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you walk me through this? That folder goes specifically to someone. They'll help you with that. Inquiring about the financial information if it's been more than 2 weeks after a scheduled check cut date, like, hey, the business owner is saying they didn't get their check yet. I just want to follow up on it. Sometimes you have to do that. Or questions regarding your initiative. Okay, so the rules on submitting this. It's really simple as this. If you flip down to the structure of the email line, it goes to events@chiron.net. The subject is in the yellow. Your initiative title, shortened without city or address. The start date of the initiative, not the end date, the start date, and then what it's regarding. Okay, so if you flip over, a couple of examples. 2013 Roots and Heritage Show, the start date, 4/13/13, documentation. Okay? That's going to get propelled into a very specific folder. And then I've got my backup documentation attached to that one. Okay? Or let's say it's Taste of Belvedere, 8/14/13. I have a question. That's going to go into a different folder. Does that make sense? It'll automatically, whenever, based on whatever you write in that dash, documentation dash question dash check inquiry, it'll automatically get propelled into a specific folder. Okay? The main one being documentation, because that's the stuff that's time sensitive. Okay? Because that's the one that you're asking for money for. Does that make sense? And you've got a what kind of deadline?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah, so you don't want something to get lost. Get what I'm saying? Everybody's with me? Okay. So, everybody know how to email events@chiron.net. Yeah? Yeah?
Events@chiron.net.
Yep, right here.
I saw that.
I'd flag this page just so you guys keep this.
I wish we had those little post-its.
I was thinking the same thing, little flag stickers.
Yeah. Just because this is a really important page out of this ridiculously large manual that you got.
But events@chiron doesn't go to that lady. It does go to her.
Some things go to her.
Okay.
So it's kind of like HR@chiron.net.
Yeah.
There's anything that's like HR@chiron.net or marketing@chiron.net. Certain things get forwarded based on what we want. So if it's marketing@chiron.net, in the subject line, if it's training questions, comes to me. If it's branding questions, it's going to go to someone else. Does that make sense? We've set up the rules to forward the email based on what the subject has. So if it's backup documentation, it goes to so-and-so and so-and-so,
We
right?
could call our regional, I mean, if we get confused or ask somebody on Yammer or something.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be confusing. Like, I want to make sure that this is a pretty black and white situation. You guys aren't confused about this at all, right?
It doesn't matter what I name the show as long as I have, you know.
Dash documentation.
And the date of this, the start. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it pretty black and white for you, or is it any type of confusing?
Not yet.
Not yet, what?
It's different when you get on there. It's always different.
Yeah. If you have questions, so this isn't necessarily questions on what to name it, it's questions on how to structure the email, right?
Yeah, I've
No.
always just had
Ooh,
one.
went right over. Okay.
Not really how to structure the email, just what to call it so that it goes into the right subfolder
Yeah.
so it connects to the right person.
I'm not even worried about the event title or the date. It's the dash documentation that has to be on the end of your subject. Okay, so there's question, check inquiry, dash documentation.
Oh, there's check inquiry too, that's not.
Yeah. So regarding categories include documentation, question, check inquiry. Right at the bottom of 137, under the highlighted yellow.
Got it.
Okay. right underneath. Okay? Make sense?
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't really clear that. Okay, so now here's the cool thing. What is backup documentation? There are 3 parts if we look on page 138, because that's really what we're going to be emailing the most. Okay? So, backup documentation is needed whenever you need the corporate office to provide financial means to execute an initiative. Okay? So when submitting backup documentation for an initiative, it's imperative that you wait until you have all the required pieces to send one single email. Okay? To events@chiro1.net. The 3 attachments, not forwards, attachments. Everybody got that concept? Nothing should ever say FW semicolon. No forwards, because it's going to go into the crazy folder. Attachments. The 3 attachments that all initiatives require are as follows. 1 is the original initiative email that we already submitted for finances to approve it and my regional to approve it. That was that big one on the online system. Remember how I said you're going to get a confirmation that you entered that? You take that email and you open a new email and you drag it and drop it. Okay? As an attachment. Does everybody know how to do that? Grab it, open up a new email, drop it in. It's an attachment. Make sense? Okay. You can even right click and forward as a new email. I know it says the word forward, but it'll automatically put it as an attachment. Okay, that's probably the most common. Then, the second thing is a copy of the backup documentation, which includes the cost of the initiative, to whom the check is made out to, address, all that kind of stuff. If you flip over to page 136, this is an example of backup documentation. It's a filled out application. Okay? So this tells me what the cost is. My booth is going to be $295. It's going to tell me where to send the check. At the bottom, please mail fax check form to St. Charles Chamber of Commerce.
We are donating $20 proceeds for each something scheduled.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We're not worried about that. What's
Not
written
just
at the
curious
bottom.
what that's on.
Yeah, we're not going to worry
Oh,
about
each
that.
appointment.
Okay. So this is an example. If you look over on the page before that, it's another example of backup documentation. For expos, this is probably going to be the most common as an application. Now, if you go to Mariano's and create an initiative, partnership, that's probably going to be a contract or a letter of agreement. That's going to serve as your application for backup documentation, because it's going to say all of these things, the cost of the initiative, to whom the check is made out to, the address of where the check is going to say, or to go, and all the dates for the event. Page 138.
Okay, so show registration documentation, and then what's the other form of documentation?
If it's a letter of agreement or contract, like if you create something like Mariano's, they're not going to have an application for you to be in Mariano's twice a month at $100 a pop. Okay, so you're going to have to create that, and that's what you'll learn that later on this week with how to create contracts or how to pick the right template. So you just have to enter that information. As long as it says all of the following, that serves. Okay. That gets scanned as an attachment too. Okay. The third attachment is a possibility. Okay. So if you check the W-9 database on Yammer and there's already a W-9 on file for your event, then you don't need to resend one. So this is like an annual thing. If we've already filled it out 3 years prior, there's probably one on file already. You don't need to worry about it. If you're creating an event like Mariano's, guess what? There's probably not one on file. Okay, so you're gonna have to fill it out and then attach it. Okay, does that make sense? Now, so you open up an email. It says add event or events at Chiron.net. Subject. Title, start date, -- documentation. 3 attachments. My original initiative email. My letter of agreement from Mariano's. My W-9 for Mariano's completed. There's no body of the email. You don't need to say, hey, what's up? How's it going? Hope your day is nice. Hope you had a nice Mother's Day. Why? Because it's going to no one. Okay? You don't feel like you're being rude. It's literally just nobody reads this.
Dear ear, how are you?
Yeah.
Maybe put on our deep dark secret.
So all it's going to be is just your email signature at the bottom. Okay. Now, in the event that a W-9 is already filled out, the body of the email will say W-9 completed under this X title, okay? Or W-9 on file under X. That make sense? That's the way I know to only expect 2 attachments because there's something in the body of the email. Does that make sense? Any questions on backup documentation? Are you going to pay for my event if I don't send backup documentation?
No.
Absolutely not. Okay, so don't be upset if we don't. It's got to happen. I also do not enter my 24 individual events in Mariano's until I get the approval back from this. Okay, I'm not going to get an email back from events at Chiron.net. What's going to happen, how I know that it's been approved, I log into the system and it'll say approved. It won't be approved unless I do this. Does that make sense?
All the protocol.
You guys get that? So then once I enter the first time, I send my backup documentation because I need that confirmation from my email to go into the new email, backup documentation. Then it gets approved. Then I can enter the 24 individual unpaid events. Okay? Right? Everybody following the system?
Yes.
Good. You guys are impressive. It took me like 2 weeks to learn this. I'm like, I'm just ever been a CER. I had no idea that any of this existed. Okay. Good? You ready to move on to naming?
Naming the event.
Naming the event.
That's what we're naming your time.
Naming the event, which is so important that it gets
What page?
its own number 4 on the tasks of the title. Okay?
What?
We're going to be on page 128 and 129.
Oh.
Mhm.
Bouncing a little bit.
Some people say this is very, very, very difficult. I don't think it is. Just my opinion. Okay. So, we go back to separating if it's a contract or if it is not a contract. So we're going to start with single dates. Okay? So, we're going to start on page 127. I'm sorry, I keep making you guys flip back and forth. So the initiative name portion needs to be exactly what is written on the backup documentation. So whatever you write in the letter of agreement, if you write Mariano's, then it's Mariano's. If you write Mariano's South Loop, then it's Mariano's South Loop. Okay? You guys get that distinction? So exactly what is written on the backup documentation. So if we run the same initiative at a later date, we'll have naming consistency. So if you look at this page, 135, it's the DuPage County Home Improvement and Landscaping Expo.
So make sure it says.
Yes, because this is going to be an annual thing. DuPage County Home Improvement and Landscaping Expo. I would not want to say Landscaping Expo or Home Improvement and Landscaping Expo or Home Expo. It is the DuPage County Home Improvement and Landscaping Expo. You guys get that? Okay. When entering a town and address, there's one space between the comma and the address. Again, this is all machine, so an all machine runs. So we have to input it a very specific way. Okay? So spelling is a really big thing. Spaces are a big thing, commas are a big thing, periods are a big thing. Okay, so be very, very, very conscious. Double check everything. Okay. Do not abbreviate anything unless it's already abbreviated in the title. So if it's Richard H.S. Craft Fair, you leave it Richard H.S. Craft Fair. But if it's Richard High School Craft Fair, you don't take it down to H.S. Does that make sense? Yes? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. The only abbreviations that we do are common street names. So Parkway, Boulevard, Road, Avenue. Please don't write down Avenue is the whole thing. They're abbreviated with no period behind it. So ST, RD, PKWY, AVE. No period behind it. Okay? When naming a workshop, you have to write workshop before the date, so you guys, we dictate that it's a workshop. That flags someone else. We're going to show you that in a second. We're going to show it to you in a second. I promise. You're like, no, I got to know now. I got to know now.
All right, my head's back on thinking we're gonna pass now. Oh, it's on my head.
Okay, so let's flip over to the next page.
I'm curious.
So this is pretty simple. So there's 4 elements. The first element is the title. The second title is the city. The second element is the city. Third element is the address. Fourth element is the date. It goes in that order. Richards High School West Fest, parenthesis, Oak Brook, comma, 123 Main Street, parentheses, space, 413, or 4313.
Gotta get used to
Okay. If I look down, see those 5 bullets there?
it.
That is the title. Richards High School West Fest, parenthesis, Oak Brook, comma, 123 Main Street, no period, parenthesis, month, day, to year.
Gotta be really careful there.
Very careful. What I want to point out, it's not 04/03/2013. It is 4/3/13. Okay? All it is just particulars. It's not hard, it's just particulars. Okay? 5K for the cure, parentheses, Elmhurst, comma, 450 South, no period, Logan Street, no period, parentheses, month, day, to year. If I look down, 5K for the cure, parentheses, Elmhurst, 450 South Logan Street, parentheses, 6/10/13. Guys, get this? Is it hard?
No, just you have to pay attention.
Yep, it's
I mean, I can't say none of us are gonna make a mistake. I mean, you gotta
Yeah.
learn. I mean,
Well-
have I ever typed in something and gone, oh, God, I sent that and I didn't mean to
Well,
send
I
it?
mean, I'm sure the first few times you do this, we're gonna be like
So-
calling Steve all the
Mhm.
time, or calling
Call
somebody
or-
we're comfortable with,
Yeah.
you know,
The-
or each
it-
other.
Yeah.
All I
maybe
can
they'll call each
stress
other.
for you guys is to proofread,
Mhm.
proofread. Even if you think that you spelled it right.
Oh, God, I caught myself.
Proofread it, pull out this page, honest to pieces, really pull out this page and just make sure that it looks right. Because if you type in 5K for the cure, send, and nothing else is attached to that naming title, you've got multiple departments coming after you.
I
Okay?
don't have a lot of friends. Maybe one time they'll be okay.
I saw it happen just a couple weeks ago. Someone just went too fast, just trying to get this in. All kinds of departments are coming after you, especially if you put money in there. You got finance coming after you, you got analysis coming after you, you got regional coming after you. Just make sure that you are careful and slow at this.
I'm
This
sure.
is not something you want to rush.
I'm sure it's not as complicated as we seem, but because we haven't done it, it's
Yeah.
very complicated.
Yeah.
I remember 10 years ago trying to put my sales in, I'm like, nah, I was like,
Yeah, just go slow, because here's the thing, it takes a lot more work to take something out, especially when you know that it's right. You don't want to enter this 24 times incorrectly. You don't want it just to say Mariano's South Loop, Mariano's West Loop, Mariano's Arlington Heights, for them me to call you up and say you got to redo it, all 24, because you are not going to be very happy camper on the other end. Does that make sense? So make sure that you go slow and you take your time, because it's just the particulars. It's no periods, the correct spacing, the correct, the month, day, year. Does that make sense? Just go slow. right? Make sense? It's not terribly complicated, it's just particulars, right? Taste of Chicago, parentheses, Chicago, 555 North Michigan Avenue, parentheses, month, day, year. Okay? Want me to keep going through them, or you got
No, we
this?
got it.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't speak for you like that.
Now, that's for single date events. Okay, so you can always see that those are single date events because it says month, day, year. 1 month, 1 day, 1 year. Okay? For contracts, this is what I need to enter for finance to pay. Okay? I've got to, remember we already did that. This is the first one that gets sent to finance, that gets sent to my regional for approval. Okay? I've got to flag it in order for them to look at the money. So, Dog Days Festival, Oak Brook, or parentheses, Oak Brook, 150 Main Street, parentheses, 43-4413. Don't mess up that date. That's usually a big one. Star contract 2 dates, star. Okay? So if I look down at that first bullet, this is what the original initiative is going to be called, the one that I need approval. Dog Days Festival, Oak Brook, 150 Main Street, 43 to 4413, star contract 2 dates. That's the one that's got the money inside of it. Once I get approval, and once finance cuts my check, I enter 2 single individual unpaid events into the system. It's going to be called Dog Days Festival, Oak Brook, 150 Main Street, 4313, and Dog Days Festival, Oak Brook, 150 Main Street, 4413. So then the CERs can attach the patients to those 2 individual events. Does that make sense? Now, just to make sure you guys remember, you don't have to worry about the individual shifts of the CER. Okay? So let's say we run the Dog Days Festival in 3 shifts, 8 to 12, 12 to 4, 4 to 8. That's all you have to worry about is one individual date. That's on the regional if they want to do multiple shifts. Okay? You get the production all day. Your event. Make sense?
Where are we entering the shifts at?
You don't.
You don't.
You don't.
Where are we entering the time at? I just have 4344 down.
You don't.
Okay.
Yeah. The regional takes care of that. You put the time in the notes saying it's
Time to
from
9.
this time to this time, but you're just worried about the whole conceptual day. Make sense? Any questions so far? So if I look at Bash on Wabash, Chicago, 555 South Wabash, 813 to 815, 13. Contact, star, contract, 3 dates, star. Don't forget the star. It's really important. Bash on Wabash, this is the one that's got the money attached. Bash on Wabash, Chicago, 555 South Wabash, 813 to 81513, contract, star, or star, contract, 3 dates, star. Good so far?
Yes, one question, but I think I can
Uh-huh.
answer it myself. Mariano's is an ongoing contract, several months. It's not just a 2-day event, so
Look at the date.
it becomes a written date instead of numeric.
Correct, yep. So Mariano's is something that's not like a weekend thing. It spans a huge span of time. I may not even have the hard dates for it yet. It might just be April to April, right?
Okay.
So it's going to be a 3-letter month APR to OCT 2013. You guys see that? Three letters
And a 4-digit year.
and a 4-digit year. Yep. You want to test your skills?
No, I think I misspelled digit. I didn't though, sorry.
That's good. All right. So, the Dog Days Festival where it says star contract 2 dates. When I pick the drop down of what kind of event it is, what am I picking?
Contract,
Event contract. When I enter those 2 individual ones, what are those?
just an event.
Screening
Final
event.
screenings.
Right.
Yep. That's yes. Good. Any questions on this? Good, let's take a quiz. Alright, page 131. What I would do, since you have a binder, just pull it out, because you're going to want to refer to the other pages.
Oh, I
Okay?
wrote all over the,
That's okay. All we're going to do is worry with this page.
oh,
Page 131. So here, I'm going to read the scenario, and you guys are going to work together to get the answers. Just so you know, it's a hard scenario. Okay?
of course.
I give you hard stuff, so the easy stuff is no big thing, right? So you're going to be partnering with the Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce. Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce, okay? Your plan is to execute the following initiatives in this contract. What do you think the contract's called?
Well,
What do you think the contract's going to be called?
It's the Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce Expo, but the 5 individual
Oh.
events in the Baby Bulls then.
That's the Crystal Lake Chamber of Expo is one of the events.
Okay.
So the Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce is one of the main title. Okay, just so you guys know that. Within that contract with the Crystal Lake Chamber
You have
of
to
Commerce,
put Baby Bulls basketball.
we have the following events going on. Crystal Lake Chamber Expo located at 123 River Road on that date. Baby Bulls tournament at
Basketball tournament.
basketball tournament at that location on that date. Taste of Crystal Lake with that information. And 2 screening events per month between September and February, dates to be determined, at Veterans Acre Nature Preserve. Okay? So, you've got a lot of things. Now remember, this is no different than your Marianos with individual dates. Okay? You've just got a little bit more element to this. So, what's the name of your main initiative contract title?
Crystal Lake
Chamber of Commerce.
Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Just said, it doesn't say that though, it says Crystal Lake Chamber Expo.
You are going to be partnering with the Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
First sentence.
So that's the initiative title.
Yes. Because within that partnership, there's a series of different events. Okay? And they want us to pay the Chamber of Commerce for all the events. Okay? Now, we're actually going to come up with the title last because we need to know dates and we need to know how many, we need to know initial hard dates, we need to know screening dates. So we're going to come up with this last. So, the first thing I want you guys to do is figure out what's the start date of this partnership and what's the end date of this partnership.
4 to 13.
Is it April 13th to February of 2014?
February what?
2014.
February what?
Dates to be determined.
Yeah, it doesn't.
What's the last possible day in February 2014?
28.
Oh, 28. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so it's going to be 4/2/13.
But want to be April 2013 through.
We have a specific hard date when it starts. So that is 4/2/13. That's the earliest date
To 2/28/14.
to 2/28. Because everybody see how we got those dates?
Yes.
Because it's 2 screenings per month through September and February, dates to be determined, but we know that's the next year. So we don't know what the February dates look like, so we picked the last possible date that it could be, okay? So that contract with the Chamber of Commerce is 4/2/13 to 2/28/14, okay? All good with that? So let's individually name each individual unpaid title that the CER is going to enter, or enter their patients into, okay?
Crystal Lake Chamber Expo.
There's gonna be a couple, right?
4/2/13.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you bullet the other ones.
Crystal Lake Chamber Expo.
Right.
What else what am I missing? What comes next?
The Baby Bulls.
No.
The
Oh,
date.
the date.
No.
The address.
Address. What
What?
starts with the address?
Front-
City. Crystal Lake. What's next?
1, 2, 3.
Nope. What's
A
next?
comma.
One comma,
Comma.
one space.
Space. 1, 2, 3. River. Road. Parenthesis. Date. 4,
2, 3.
2, 13. That's one.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is what?
Baby Bows basketball tournament. Same thing, address, parentheses, 100 Main Street, one comma. No, sorry, Crystal Lake Town first, comma,
Yeah.
then the address, parentheses, and then 6, 11, 13.
Yep. Comma. Crystal Lake.
And then on the Taste of Crystal Lake, do we do a dash, 7, 4 through?
Then
How do we
comma,
do the date
space.
on it?
Hold on. You guys, I want you to write this down. We'll work together to get there. I want you guys to write this down so you guys can refer to this. Okay? Crystal Lake, comma, 100 Main Street, 6, 11, 13. So, Renee, tell me what the next one's gonna be.
The Taste of Crystal Lake,
Taste. Crystal Lake,
parenthesis,
okay.
5,
Oh, parenthesis,
parenthesis.
City.
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
The city would be Crystal Lake,
Okay,
comma,
comma,
5, Dole, AVE, parenthesis,
yeah.
7, 4. Do I have to look certain dates up? Because it says 7, 4, 13. Oh, okay. I thought it said 7, 4, 13, 2. Okay,
Yep,
7, 4, 13.
and then the next one's going to be Taste of
Same one.
Crystal Lake, same thing,
With the last date,
Ah.
7,
7,
5,
5,
13.
13.
Yeah, got
Separate
it.
events.
Because remember, this is what the CERs are gonna attach to, okay? And then, remember, okay, so this is what I want you to remember. This is my notes section. Okay, now the last one, I don't have hard dates to, so I can't enter them yet. Does that make sense?
You still write it up, or?
I'm going to actually write exactly what that says, 2 screenings per event. Per month. Between September and February, dates to be determined. At Veterans Nature Reserve. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? So those are all the titles. When this gets approved, when my Chamber of Commerce, my Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce gets a contract gets approved for however much money we negotiated, and I can go back in and I enter all of these individual dates or these individual events. By that time, I probably have these hard dates. Does that make sense? Yes.
After the Veterans Acres Nature's Preserve, should we put the parentheses Crystal Lake, comma, 13 Walkup Road?
You can if you want to. Does that make sense? Now, once this does get approved, and I enter each one individual date, what's in the notes of this one? Event contract entered under the original
Crystal Lake
contract.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, that, so you reverse it, okay? when you have a contract, let's go back to naming what this contract is called. What's the name of this whole contract? Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, Crystal Lake. Whatever the address is of Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce building. And then the date is APR to FEB 2014. Contract, or star contract. How many dates do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 2
Yeah,
screenings per month between September, October, November, December, January, February. 6 months times 2,
So that's 12 plus 4, 16.
contract 16 dates, start. Okay, that goes into answer number 1. That's the name of this contract.
With the dates? Oh, after, down below.
It's this name.
Right,
What's
that's what
in
I'm
it?
saying.
Yep.
Right, so this is the Crystal Lake
Mhm.
Chamber of Commerce, and then we would put the dates as
Mhm.
4/2/13 to,
Yep. So is everybody with me? The brown title is the first title of the contract.
What does that say, 16?
Star contract 16 dates star.
does that go on, that goes,
This is the whole title.
right, how do you fit all that in?
The field will take it,
Oh,
okay? So that's the answer to this one.
16 dates?
Star contract 16 date star. Okay, that's the answer to this one. It's not just Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Star contract 16.
Yep. It's Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce, parentheses, Crystal Lake, comma, 123 Main Street, which is the address of the Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce building, parentheses, APR FEB 2014, star contract 16 date star.
That would go in.
That's the title, okay? The initiative start date is 4/2/13, end date is 2/28/14, right? Then in the notes, those are all my individual titles, and we already did that,
of course, I put them in the wrong place.
okay? Those are all my individual titles. Now, when I go in, my last question is, once I go in to enter these individual dates, let's say I'm entering the baby bowls. What do I put in the notes of this particular individual unpaid event?
Chamber, Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce.
Approved under contract, Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce, this title, okay? You guys remember? So it's reversed. If I'm entering the contract title, I enter all the individual dates. If I'm entering the individual dates, I enter the contract title. Always matching. Make sense? Like I said, copy paste, your
Yeah.
best friend.
So all I put is approved under contract, Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce, or do I put the whole Crystal Lake?
title.
Okay, got it.
On this line right here,
Mm-hmm.
does could I do it wrong, because it's really supposed to be this, so I
Yeah.
left out
You left out
this.
the address.
Yes.
It has to be
Okay,
in there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that complicated to understand, it's just very particular, right? It's the hardest thing you'll learn all week.
Okay.
I'm done, you can
I'm
pay me
done.
now, right? This is really the hardest thing you'll pay all, or that you'll learn all week. Any questions about it? No? That's the naming protocol. Does anybody have questions on the name? Just don't forget the address. What's that?
Just really loud.
It is really long. Yeah. It has to be really long because there's a lot of good information in it. And the cool thing is when we can actually start tracking trends. So, and what's like, there's been events that we do every single year. I've been here since '09 that we can track the trends. And what's really neat is like if there's summer events, you can tell, was it bad weather? Was it like, we can make notes about that saying, you know, this year it was really good, this year was even better, the third year there was a tornado so nobody was there. Like we can start tracking those trends, which is really, really powerful. We've been able to track trends on what day is the best day to go to a grocery store. What day is the best day to go to what particular grocery store.
Probably when they have their flyer come out.
It just depends on that particular grocery store. If we didn't have this ridiculous naming protocol, we wouldn't be able to track those trends. Because, for example, when I screened, we had an event called the Atrium Mall in downtown Chicago. You know what the Atrium Mall is in our world? The James R. Thompson Center. If we're all calling it something different, it's really the James R. Thompson Center. I don't know where we picked up the Atrium Mall. We just did. Or Century Mall. That means something completely different.
Used to be on Parks.
Right. So we have to make sure that the naming is consistent for all evs, okay? Another example is we used to say Dom's Chicago Avenue or Dom's Canal Street. That was Dominic's on Canal Street, okay? So very specific. Plus, there's 2 Dominics that were on the same street, but we knew which one we went to, which one we didn't go to. Nobody in corporate knows that.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's why we have to create these patterns to serve you better so we can say, hey, you got $5,000 left for the year. How can we most strategically use that money to get a return on investment for you guys, right? Because I'd rather do patterns and say, hey, here's what's going to make you the most money. Don't go to the grocery store on this day. Or if you had to choose, go to the store on this day versus this day. Does that make sense? Or when you've got so many events that we have to start looking at which ones do we run, because like let's say you've got 10 events by yourself on a Saturday, then you can make the decision with your dev or with your regional saying, given the patterns, this one's going to produce more than this one's going to produce. And this one might not produce as much as this one, but I need to push that clinic. Does that make sense? You'll be able to run those patterns yourself. Does that make sense? That's why this naming protocol is so important. Just make sure you flag these pages. These are the most important pages in this whole manual. Okay? I'll fight you into the death on that one. Okay? Questions on this? No? That's the hardest thing you'll learn all week.